Okay, I had sent out an email yesterday, first announcement, saying that I'm going to head to LCC soon. I don't know exactly when. And every term I say, if you don't like staring at screens, you want me to print out all the three main topic web pages, maybe the homework list, maybe some other stuff, then let me know. And I will give you a stack of papers so you don't have to pay for printing all that. So I finally got clearance from my boss to go and make some sort of arrangements um, and pass out stacks of paper to people. There's also books in our class library that would be fun to give you if that actually fits into your life this term. We'll talk about those more later. But for now, I just need to know who wants printed things of the web pages. Christina N. and Caitlin have gotten back to me already. So don't call things out now, but just use the chat, whisper to everyone or whisper privately to me, say you want printed web pages, and then I will at the end of this do that. And if you give me details, I want just the topics, I want just the homework list, I want lots of stuff. And I might just call you on the phone later to say exactly what should I do so I don't waste too many trees. So first announcement, if you want stuff printed out so you don't have to stare at the screen as much, let me know. Second announcement, the class calendar, I'm putting due dates on it as we go. So if you are at our class website and go down to the calendar, then I will put a link to this in all of our after class emails, so you don't have to scroll down like I did. But see, for Math 25 patterns, for us, the rounding, all of those due dates, once we have them, I'll put in the calendar. There's two things to click on. If you use Google, you can click on this button in the bottom corner, and it will add the math calendar to your display of calendars. So then you can see all the due dates when you look at your online calendar normally. If you don't use Google, this link saves a little text file called an iCal address. And there should be some way to import an iCal calendar to whatever software you do use for a calendar, if it's something else, and then put the math things there also. So if it's the emails after class aren't enough to keep track of what's due, look at the calendar. If looking at it on the web page isn't handy, then you can add it to your own calendar somehow. I can test this with Google, but since I use a Google Calendar, I don't have a Mac or some other thing to test that one with. Okay, lastly, I'm curious what the MRC, Math Resource Center tutoring is doing. They're offering Zoom tutoring. Has anyone actually tried that yet? They just started yesterday offering email tutoring, and I suggested people try that. And they are going to offer text chat tutoring, but I haven't got that set up yet. So I am wondering how well that's working. Who has tried it? Has it worked? Has it not worked? Are there any surprises that we should warn our classmates about while we're all here together? So either talk out and say something out loud or use text chat or something, but how is that going? No one has feedback? No? Okay, well, play around with it. You have all weekend now to try things. So see how those nice people are doing, make them feel useful. Okay, we started with a question on the fraction format, just people per square mile, top divided by bottom to make a unit rate. So if you needed that, then look there. And otherwise, let's go back. I wanted to start by talking about more of the website. I wanted to start the first week of class, 3 days of class, with this looks like a very boring normal class that you're used to. You have math topics. You go to a place in the book and do some homework. You turn in some homework. You look at the lecture notes. We really only use the top row of our 9 things here so far. But that's about to change. So that's what I'm going to talk about next. But before I jump into that, other homework problems that people wanted me to look at from anything I've assigned. anyone else has any homework questions? I don't believe it. Let me go again over here. Okay, so nothing on rounding, even though it's due today. Nothing on fraction format. Besides the one easy one that someone asked because they tried to do it by hand needlessly. Nothing on percents. No, you are all either quiet and shy or capable. I'm not sure which. Okay, then I will just go on. So the other things are about you becoming someone that is happy with math. And let's talk about what that means, because this is a different kind of math class than you've seen before. I don't normally just read things off the web page, but this is important enough and carefully written enough that for most of it I will. If I have a kid, like my two young boys in elementary and middle school, they know they are readers. They know how to read. They read for pleasure. Other people have told them, you are a reader. They feel done with learning to read, even though there are words they don't know, and they have moved on to using reading to learn. And they can use words to answer questions. Sometimes they will say, I don't know, my older son, who is now 12, was reading David Barry books because he wanted funny things, and he didn't know what hanging chads were, so we had to talk about that. But sometimes we'll just send him to Google and say, no, look this up yourself. So when do people become mathers? This is a made-up word. It's not a real word. I'm just making it up, but you can see that it's sort of like reader. There should be something there where people tell you, great job, you finished elementary and middle school, you are a mather. So let's figure out why no one has that word, why our language is missing it. So first, everyone knows that reading and writing are different. You can read at a higher level than you write. It would be very silly if when my 8-year-old was in his 3rd grade classroom, someone said, sorry, you can't check out any books from the library until you can write as well as the author that you're trying to read. Right? But too often, all that happens in math is that everyone is asked to produce math at the same level they take in math. And that's silly, just like it is for writing. So the main reason we have a class library, going back up to here, is that there's lots of fun books that you can understand perfectly fine, even though you can't do the math in them yourself. So one thing that we want you to do in Math 20 is at least once try and read one of these books, only the first 3 chapters because you're busy people. And it might not happen this term because physically getting books to you is for some reason a challenge. But just doing that would let you know that, yes, I can take in math at a higher level than I can take out, just like I can enjoy reading at a higher level than I can write. And there's a lot of things out there that are basically math books, even if they look nothing like a math textbook. They don't have sections, they don't have problems for you to do at the end of a chapter, but they're full of math and how math helps in the real world. So if you haven't experienced that before, and if you haven't, it's not your fault, it's because your older math teachers didn't actually bother with this, then we want you to see that. Another thing that's different with math and language is going high up in the language skills tends to be something that people say, oh, that's your hobby, or that's your eccentricity, or that's some academic specialty you have. Whoops, I don't want to go there. So no one these days needs to diagram sentences or read Old English from the Canterbury Tales. But math, everyone has this false idea that math is some sort of sequence or flowchart, and you have to work your way down, and you don't get to call yourself a mather until you've gotten a certain place on the flowchart. And that's not true. Just like there's lots of different kinds of language and you can enjoy them all separately, you don't have to be a poet to enjoy a novel or vice versa, then there's all kinds of math. And if you haven't seen the others, again, that's not your fault. Someone just hasn't shown you that. But part of my job in Math 20 is to show you more kinds of things. So that's why we have these playgrounds. And if you say, why is drawing with dots and lines math? Then by the time you get to the end, you'll see there's stuff there. You can play around with things like foot size and height. You can look at famous mathematical ideas and see which ones seem beautiful to you. You can talk about how error moves around with a little thing that has some more guidance than most of it. I have a bunch of these I haven't bothered to actually write out carefully yet. But part of what I want to do is show you with what I'm calling these playgrounds, whoops, we're back here, that there's more to math than just this typical flowchart you may have seen. And just because you are only at a certain point of Math 20 on this flowchart doesn't mean that you're at the beginning of the other kinds of math in the same way. You can probably have a lot more real life experience with some things than others and enjoy other things more than what's on this flowchart. So play around a little bit. We'll talk about that too. It's also true that as a third thing, most of the math problems you've done in your life, in a classroom at least, have been famous problems other people have already done and know the answers to. It's sort of like you're doing art appreciation. Here's a famous painting. Let's all look at it. Someone else has done this before. We should figure out what we can learn from it. But that's not really what painting is all about. So similarly, we want you to do math that is kind of real math, not just a same math problem someone else has done, but something that applies to you specially. So when we go to the playgrounds again, one of the most important ones is the big issues without right answers. So this page is long. There's 23 different problems. They are organized by Math 25 category, but they're not Math 25 problems. And they're all about real life things that aren't in your math textbooks. So if you do 2 of them, that's all we're really asking this term. Some people can do more than 2, but just sort of figure out real life issues about how math affects things. And if this list is incomplete, you really want to build a doghouse in your backyard and use that small construction project as a math assignment, then you can. You don't have to limit yourselves to just the ones I've given you, but check with me before you are doing that. So we want you to do some real math that isn't just copying what math other people have already done and know the answer to. So how a real math problem like that works is the problem appears in some genuine way, not just a textbook. You have to figure out how to put numbers on paper. Then we move the numbers around, and that's the part the math classes usually do. And then you have to evaluate your results. Is this something that I can actually base a decision on? Should I rent a house or buy it? Or are all of my assumptions so vague that I have no idea if I can act on this or not? And then usually there's some communication. Sometimes we're loners, but usually we have to talk to someone else and say, yes, we should, whatever, pay our taxes early or on time this year because of what just happened with the federal laws and so on, and tell somebody about what decision you made. So what does it mean to actually be a mather? If this was a real word, what would it mean? Can you participate in a math discussion? Can you read a book that has math in it, even if it's not a math textbook, because there's better books out there? Can you explore things with math? Can you analyze your or someone else's issues or problems and communicate about the results? Can you use resources to refresh your math skills? Can you do some problems on a test when you need to? And can you plan about how much math is in your life? So if that's what using math is really about, that's what I should be grading you on. So if you haven't yet, then at the beginning of the achievements is a little video. It's not that long, so watch that. Okay, but the reason that we have all of these stars is because I want you to be doing all those things I just talked about for a few minutes. So the letter grade part is actually the least exciting. You will read that because you care about your letter grades. But the how math works, then can you find an example of our math topics in the news? Can you work with someone on a homework problem? when they ask for help. Some of you have already done this in one of the study sessions we've had. Can you just begin 2 of the big issues? Or later on, can you actually finish some of the big issues? Can you do something on the board during class? This term it will be perhaps using the Zoom whiteboard, or perhaps you just hold some paper up to the camera and say, here's my stuff. We'll start doing some little 3-minute multiplication quizzes just to get your times tables faster, but not today. Can you teach someone else about our math topics, or teach someone about some non-class math topics, things like that? Can you ask a question during class, or maybe even ask 11 during the whole term? Study groups, I normally don't see them, but if you're at 3 of the study sessions, then you don't actually have to take a picture of that. If you're working with somebody at your house or something on math, then just take a picture. If you don't want to be in the picture, take a picture of your books and your scratch paper. I don't have to see your face. And then here's the little report just on the first chapter of Factfulness, which you can get to online, and then later 1 book report. If you really want to, you can try for 2 book reports. And then the explorations, do 1 or 2 of those, and so on. So look through this. A lot of these things that you've done already. There are people who have asked questions during class already, the last 2, 3 classes. There are people that have already been to study sessions. There's people that have already helped each other during study sessions. So if you've already done these things, let me know. And I am not paying too much attention to who has done these things yet, because I want you to tell me so you're excited about it and we can sort of celebrate together. Yay, a little happy dance. At the end of the term, I'm not going to let you slip through the cracks. So if there is something up above about, have you turned in 9 homeworks, and you've turned in 9 homeworks, I will give you the star. But I would rather you yourself notice, yay, this is my 9th homework, give me this star also. Does that make sense? So this is different than how grading is working. It's more realistic than how grading is working, because we're actually wanting you to do certain things as opposed to just average a bunch of points. But once you get going, it's fun. And compared to most terms, if you look at how many people have given me code names and started on things, then we're doing great. By the 4th class, we have a lot of people that have turned in some homework codes already and done other things. So start in your emails to me or texts to me or whatever, say, I just asked a question in class, record it on the grade sheet, silly teacher, and so on. Okay, questions about all of that? That was a lot of me talking.
So I have a question about the name. Are you just wanting me to send you a message about my code name, or how do I go and do that?
If you don't have a code name yet, just give me one. So I need something here so you can look up how you're doing. And I need it that it's not overly, it needs to be somewhat anonymous, because this isn't a Moodle site that only people in the class can see. This is something that everyone in the world could see if they really wanted to. So we don't want to put your first and last name on it. So
then I just go click on that and then go find my own code name.
If you've given me a code name, it will be here somewhere. Yes,
okay, I haven't.
There, okay.
Okay, so I let you know what my name wants to be. Okay.
And if you have one picked out already, just send me an email or a text, or put it in the Zoom chat privately to me or something like that.
Okay.
Whatever works.
Okay.
Good question. Other questions about all of this?
I have a question. How do you click on your code name? Because to see what achievements you've
Let's see,
made.
who has more than a few? So whoever Imogen is doing well. So I'll pick her, and then I hit go. And then whenever I scroll, then there's check marks for what this person has done.
Okay.
So hit go. If you don't hit go, nothing happens.
Oh.
So do we create our own code name, or do we?
Yep, make something up.
Okay, so we don't pick one of these that are already on there. We create our own.
Create your own. These are ones already claimed by students. So.
Okay.
Good questions. Any other questions about this?
I had a question on the homework. If we weren't happy with the score that we got, are we able to redo the homework?
Yes, that's a good thing to talk about. So in a normal math class, then you would turn in homework and I would spend a long time writing on your scratch paper, mark lots of C's and X's and things like that. And then I'd
Right.
pass it back and you'd stick it in your folder and never look at it again. So that's a waste of time. So when you're doing these turn-in homeworks, then let's say you're doing fraction, then have this either printed out before you if you want the printout, or work on it from the screen if your eyes can stand that. And then when you think you're done, you go here, click your bubbles, right? Hopefully I've done this enough times, but just one more demonstration, whatever your clicks are. And at the end, you say process my answers, you get a code, copy and paste that, send that to me in an email. Why I am doing it this way is two reasons. First, I don't want the website to grade you automatically. I certainly could program it to do that, but I want more kind of face-to-face interaction. I want you to talk to me and I get back to you and I say how you're doing. But on the other hand, it's quick compared to me writing lots of red marks on one of your papers. It doesn't take me long at all to look at a code, decode it, see how you did, and send you a quick email of a couple sentences saying, 8 out of 10, all done with that homework, or 6 out of 10, here's the first one you missed, or something like that. So since it's efficient for me, I can do this more than once. If you're only turning in each code once, you're probably being too cautious. Some of you live with people that are good at math. Some of you have people you live with that took Math 20 next term, I know. Some of you spend lots of time in the Math Resource Center and get it all done before you turn it in. But most people in Math 20 will turn in these codes more than once for each assignment. So don't do it too much. I can tell if you're just fishing for which multiple choice answer is correct. But yeah, you can turn in a code 2 or 3 times and not be embarrassed about it at all.
Okay.
That's not a waste of time. That's how it works. I would rather have you keep paying attention to the homework and learning from it and starting out a class or a study session saying, I missed fraction format number 5. Can we do that on the board, or can someone else help me with that? Then, you know, I've tried to make it where you've shared emails and phone numbers with each other as much as you want. So you can call up a study buddy and say, I missed 7. Did you miss 7? You know, and so on. So I'm trying to make it where you can keep paying attention to your homework and not just have some paper with red marks that you stuff in your backpack and never look at again. So your goal should be to get 8 out of 10 on all of these and have some good notes you've made while doing it, so that when you're taking a test, you can look at your notes and say, ah, I know how to do this kind of problem. Here it is. Did that answer your question enough?
Yeah, that's all good.
Okay. Other questions?
I have a question on the 2 assignments that are due at the end of the week.
Okay, let's talk about those.
So for the first one, about the paper, or the the beginning of the term thing, sorry. So is it just a letter we write to someone?
Yeah, send me an
email?
email, things like that.
Okay.
So there's 2 of them. You can get to them 2 ways. If you go to your list of assignments, then that's sort of a to-do list as well as a check mark list. So there's 2 links here. If you go back to the playgrounds page, then the reflections are here. So when I open them up, let's look at them. One of them is like a syllabus quiz, but less structured. I want you to sort of think about things, get your mind settled before we dive into this class the rest of the time. If it was a normal term, I would have had you do this the first week of class, but we had enough going on in life that I didn't want to try and add this to week 1 of this strange term. So this is like your syllabus quiz, but I'm not just listing a dozen problems for you to answer. So talk about the sum. I don't really care which of this stuff you talk about, but whatever is helping you. And if you spend more than 20 or 30 minutes on it, you're taking it too seriously. But hopefully I've done a good job as the instructor of prompting you in a way that gives you good things to think about, that will help you sort of direct yourself, aim yourself, give yourself some purpose as we're going through the rest of this term. So that's that one. The other one is from LCC. LCC itself has what it calls core learning outcomes. And these have headings and subheadings. And the idea is that all classes at LCC are worthwhile. That if someone says, this is a silly class, it will never help you get a job, you can say, oh, that's not true. Even if we're just studying underwater basket weaving, then still we're learning about thinking critically and engaging diverse values with civic and ethic awareness and all the rest of these.
And how do we turn those in?
So your job is only to pick 4. There's 27 different little subheadings. You're going to ignore almost all of them. Just pick 4 of them and say, I can write a sentence or 2 about how identify and define key issues relate to Math 20. I can write a sentence or 2 about clarifying personal values and perspectives applies to Math 20. Just pick whatever 4 of these you want and what we're doing. Don't steal my sentences, you write your own. And the idea is just that you've sort of paid a little bit of attention to how LCC classes are worthwhile. In a perfect world, all of your LCC instructors would have you do this, but too many of them ignore it. So,
Can you just email
So
that
just
one as
to
well?
clarify, the reflection is due by this weekend, or the core and the reflection?
both of them are due officially like Monday. So hopefully you get them done before Friday,
Okay.
because it'll be a nice sunny weekend and who wants to be writing a math essay? But if you don't get them done Friday, I understand the work week isn't the best for everybody, so do it over the weekend. Okay, so someone else got cut off.
I was saying you just email the core learning one too.
Yep, if you don't like typing, then write it out by hand, take a picture with your phone and send me a picture of a piece of paper. But for most people, typing is faster than writing. Good questions about all of this. Anything else?
I have a question about, you said to set up a shared folder in our Google Drive.
Okay. Once you start sharing pictures with me, it's hard to send pictures by email sometimes. Sometimes they get formatted funny, they get too big. It's hard to see them on the email, whatever. So once we start doing testing stuff and you're going to send me pictures of your Scratch work, then that's a good thing to do. So in the distance learning tips page, scrolling down a little bit, then there's Google Drive and instructions here about making a shared folder. So look at that. You don't need it yet. I don't want to really confuse people yet with it, but that's there. It's exactly the same thing I've done, that if you were looking for these Math 20 things and you don't want to click here for some reason, maybe a link is broken, then you can go to my public fun and say in Math 20, here's all of our Jamboards and videos and things like that. So it's just a way to share things easily without having to make them email attachments. Once you have something here, if you wanted to send it to me, let's say you wanted to send me that, then you just open up the context menu, pick share, and then I copy and paste this thing that's already highlighted, whatever it is, into an email to me. And then ta-da, you don't actually have to attach the attachment. It just makes a link to it on your drive. So that's partly because last I have heard, and I checked this just at the beginning of the term, you with your fancy LCC email accounts don't have unlimited storage. So if you start sending me lots of giant super megabyte photos of math papers, you're going to fill up your email space. And I don't want that to happen. Okay, all good questions. More good questions. Anyone have questions? No. Okay, if you get some, talk to me. Otherwise, let's keep going. So, so we had a question on fraction format, but it was more of, do I have to do this by hand or not? It turned out to be. Is it okay if fraction format is due along with percent format on Monday? It gets kind of awkward if we're having the due dates out of order. That confuses people. So.
Yes, I'm good with that.
Anyone need more time for fraction format or percent format?
I might need more time on the percent format.
Right, okay. So let's make fraction format due Monday and percent due Wednesday. I'm just making a note to myself now. While I'm writing, I will just keep saying that, remember, this doesn't have to be solo work. Use your phones, use Zoom, use the people around you. Talking about the math while you do it helps a whole lot. So you can do it by yourself, but that's not advised. Okay, so where we are is in measurement. We did story time about measurement units and their history. Maybe you had to memorize cups, pints, quarts, gallons. Now we're talking about one-step conversions. Everyone ready? Give me one of the thumbs up signs in your Zoom reaction. Raid ready check. Make sure that you're still there and not all playing Overwatch with each other. Oh, okay. Oh, good enough. Have you seen the little video on Reddit about the kid playing computer games during his class? I'll send that out in the email after class. It's very funny. Okay, if you are in the free book, we're in section 7.1 and 7.2 and 7.3. If you're in the green book with zebras, then we're in chapter 8. And every textbook breaks up measurement units in different ways, usually by if it's length or width or height. And that seems silly because the math doesn't care if it's length or width or height. So let's just keep going. So there's 12 inches in a foot. You know me by now. You know I like to draw pictures. If it helps you, great. If not, ignore my pictures. So if I have 7.5 feet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then a little bit, that's just half a foot. Each of those is 12 inches. And so on. So it's like we are shattering or splitting apart or breaking or distributing, whatever word makes sense for you. Each of those feet is becoming 12 different things. So I'm going to take my 7.5 feet and I have to do a times 12 because each foot is turning into 12 little pieces. So whatever that is, 90 inches. Everyone okay so far?
Yep.
If we do it the other way, 30 inches is how many feet? Then of course the opposite happens. I'm going to start by saying, here's 12 inches. Am I done with 30? No. Here's another 12. Now I'm up to 24. Do I have 12 more to make 36? No. What I actually have is just 24, 30, so 6 inches left. So now I'm combining these together. These will all become 1 foot. These will all become 1 foot. And this can be half a foot. So we're squishing inches together. Maybe other words that would make sense for you is we're grouping, or we're fusing, or we're bundling, or we're gluing, whatever makes sense to you. We're taking these 12 inches and attaching them together to make a 1 foot ruler, and then we're done. So math-wise, whoops, we're going to take our 30 inches and divide by our 12 to get 2.5 feet. Everyone okay with that?
I don't know, for some reason my brain keeps wanting to like solve these problems by fractions, and that's not what you're doing at all, and my brain's kind of like misfiring right now.
Okay, there's other ways to do this. Let me talk about why we're doing it this way, because there's importance in that.
Yeah, I want to understand this way. That's why I spoke up, because
Well, this is a kind of a tricky thing. Now that we're starting measurement conversion, then there's lots of ways to do this, and I can't teach it right. Because some people do lots of this in real life, especially if you are into carpentry or something, or if you're cooking and used to it with the kitchen measurements, and you will just sort of know the answer and not know how you know the answer. And if you can just do these and write the answer, that's great. You don't have to write it all the way I do. It's also true that there's some more complicated styles of math that do this great. We'll talk later about proportions and how you could use cross multiplying to do this kind of problem. And we'll talk after that about something called a unit analysis, where we'll multiply fractions and cancel out words. And that will do this. So if you are used to a different technique to get this done, stay with what works for you. But if I jump ahead to those other techniques that are a little more complicated, but also a lot stronger, they prevent errors, they apply to more situations, then somebody's going to fuss at me and say, wait a minute, all you need to do is multiply by 12 or divide by 12. Why are you making a proportion? So if you're used to doing it another way, stick with what works for you. If you haven't thought about this ever, then just sort of see if this works. If not, there's two other ways to do this that we'll get to before the end of the term. Did that address your question, Chrissy? Okay, so let's keep going with ones that are a little more complicated. So how would you remember this? Again, some people, when I say 7.5 feet is how many inches, would, they just know I'm going to multiply. They don't have to think about it at all. Other people, for number 80, if I say 30 inches is how many feet, they just know they're supposed to divide. So if you don't have that intuition yet, then there's a trick. We could say that a foot is like a multiple inches in the same way that 15 has multiple threes in it. So multiplying is like with multiples. So for the first one, we were multiplying. We could also say that inches are like a factor of foot. They're little pieces of a foot in the same way that 3 is a factor of 15. So factors are about division, so I'm dividing. So if that helps you, then for these very simplest type of unit conversions, then when to multiply, when to divide, if you're going from something that's a multiple of a smaller amount, feet is bigger than inches, then we multiply. If we're going from something that's a part of the bigger amount, inches is a part of feet, then we divide. Again, if you're used to proportions or unit analysis, do it that way too. Don't change how it works for you. Okay, let's do some on the board, not just me. Is that big enough for everyone to read? Good, okay. So how many inches are in 5.7 feet, 5.75 feet? What am I going to do with this 5.75?
Multiply by 12.
Multiply by 12, okay. For the second one, if I have 198 inches, oops, 198. I want to go into feet. What am I going to do? Someone else call out.
Divide by 12.
Divide by 12. Okay, so now someone who hasn't talked yet, explain, whoops, why am I writing 60? My brain is off. Okay, you can tell I'm looking at a different problem. Someone else hasn't talked yet. Why is 1 times 12? Why is 1 divided by? How do we know which is which?
Is it because it says inches and the other one is feet? So then inches is times and then the feet is multiplying?
I would be hesitant to think about it because if we had yards, then that would mess up the pattern you're saying.
Oh,
It's about 1, as we said before, one of them is made up of the other one. And if the thing we're going from is made up of the smaller one, then we multiply. So this is because each feet is being whatever, shattered, broken up, whatever word works for you. So we're making more little pieces by turning it into inches.
okay.
This one is divided because bunches of inches are being grouped. Pardon my handwriting. Okay. What are the actual answers to this? Let's see, 5.75 times 12, 69. Okay, one that's not on here, but I love that question. That was a good one. So let's do it up over here. Extra. If I want to say that 10.5 yards is how many feet, what am I going to do with that 10.5? Multiply or divide? We know there's 3 feet in a yard.
Divide.
Divide. So if I'm dividing, that would be because I think there's bunches of yards being grouped together. But that's not what we're doing. Yards are bigger than feet.
So are we multiplying it?
Yeah, so 3 feet is a yard. Imagine a yardstick. We have to take the yardstick here and I don't trust my mental math, pardon me. It is embarrassing. Okay. We're going to take each yardstick and break it up into 3 different 1-foot rulers. You can imagine a kung fu guy breaking the yardsticks into 3 pieces each. We could make it where 10.5 feet is how many yards. Now I'm taking something small and bunching them together. So which one is that?
Divide.
That's the divide. Questions on what's on the board before I move on to the next one? Okay, think to yourself, these match up. One of them is we have 12 gallons and we're going to the smaller amount of cups. The other is we have the smaller amount of cups and we're going to the bigger amount of gallons. So which one is a times and which is a divide? Do we remember how many cups are in a gallon? Remember that picture? Monday was a long time ago.
16.
16, yeah. So I'm going to grab that. It's not going to fit on this slide, but I can put it on the next one. So 16 cups is 1 gallon. So we're going to do something with 16, times or divide. When you're pretty sure you know which it is, type it in chat or be happy to yourself or something, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, 3 people are saying multiply. Does that mean they want multiply for the first one? There's 2 things here. Is this what we think is happening? Does that match our problem? Is the gallon something that we're shattering into pieces? Yeah, the gallon is the big thing, and we're breaking it up into little cups. So that one is the multiply. For divided by, are the cups the ones that we're bunching together? Yeah, we're taking the 40 cups, whoops, and every time we get 16 of them, we'll pour it into our gallon bucket, be done with that bucket, move on to the next bucket, get 16 more cups, start filling the second bucket, and so on, and seeing how many bunches we get together. Okay, did anyone actually do the answers? What's 16 times 12?
192.
And 40 divided by 16?
2.5.
Okay, we're almost done. So we have 152 ounces and, oops, no, that one's pounds. And 152, why is my not working? Okay, ounces. So how many ounces are in a pound?
16.
16, so there'll be 16s here. Are we multiplying or dividing?
First one's multiply.
First one is multiply. Let's see, are the pounds the things that we're going to be shattering into lots of little things? Yeah, pounds are bigger than ounces. So that's, are the ounces things that we're grouping up into bundles? Yeah, so that's divided by. Okay, did anyone actually do the answers?
The first one is 2,432.
Okay.
The second one is 9.5.
Okay. Okay, questions about any of that? No, we're good? Okay, holler if I'm going too fast on any of this. Okay, so we're doing that because it's not the best system. If I ask you how many inches are in a mile, we're not quite ready for that yet. But I'm working on your intuition of when things are getting bigger with multiplying and when things are getting smaller with dividing. Are we shattering things or bundling things? We have SI prefixes. We talked about that. And I think this is the end. Is this the end? No, we have exponent. Okay, we're almost at the end of things to do with only one number. So there's a cute trick, which is why the rest of the world likes the SI system, the metric system. That means that we don't have to do what we just did. And unfortunately, the free ebook doesn't do this. If you're in the blue book, we're still in section 8. When we did our history of the different types of measurement units, we saw a few prefixes. A kilogram was 1,000 grams. A milliliter or a millimeter was 1,000th of those. And a centimeter was 100th of those. And that's part of a general pattern. Kilo always means 1,000. Centa always means 100th. Milli always means 1,000th. And if you've done any medicine, a microgram, a micro means a millionth. So there's this list of them. That is pretty and colorful on our website. And the tricky thing to understand is what's happening right here. That this is where we have our gram or our liter or our meter. If we were doing more things, we could put watts or smoots or all sorts of other units here that we don't care about. So when it says unit, that's what it means. What measurement unit are we using? If I want to make it bigger, 10 of them is a deca, so 10 grams is a decagram. 100 of them is hecto, 1,000 is kilo. If you've never heard of decagrams or hectograms, that's okay. Even in Europe, they're pretty rarely used. We are not going to worry about those. So, we still need to know they exist, though. We'll talk about that in a moment. Going smaller, 1/10 of a liter is a deciliter. 100th of a liter would be a centiliter. 1,000th of a liter is a milliliter. Then the next two, for some reason, don't have names. The 10,000th and 100,000th don't. And then a microliter would be a millionth of a liter. As before, deci in the US, we're not going to worry about. We just need to know it exists. I have no idea why certain things are more popular than others. We talk about milligrams and milliliters and millimeters for all of them, but we don't tend to talk about centiliters the way we talk about centigrams. Just like last class I mentioned, I'm not sure why milliliters and cubic centimeters have two different names based on if you are in a lab or nursing or fixing motorcycles, but that's how it is. So what are we going to do with all of this? It's a cute picture. Is it actually good for anything? We want to memorize just the initials. And this really is something that is memorizing. Even with open notes, you're going to save a lot of time if you can just write on your paper, KHDUDCM ... micro. You'll see me do this a lot during class. And there's sayings about why this works. Maybe King Henry does usually drink chocolate milk. Killer hobos dance under dazzling crystal mobiles. Make up your own saying. I will put it right here in the website if you make up your own catchy saying. But you want to be able to write that out. And you want to write that because of a shortcut. So if I am asked, whoops, how many milliliters are in 2.8 centimeters, I could do this the way we just did. I could say, if I stare at my ruler, then I can see, oops, that 1 centimeter is 10 millimeters, 10 of the little marks and the bigger mark on my ruler. So if I have 2.8 centimeters, am I going to multiply or divide if I'm turning it into a smaller thing?
Multiply?
Multiply. Because again, we're shattering or breaking apart or whatever you wanted to call it. But that's too much work. Look, I had to write stuff on the paper. Ew. So the trick is I can just take my thing here. Let me move it. Where am I starting on this list? I am starting with Milla. Where am I going? I am going to centa. How did I do that? No, I'm sorry. I'm saying that wrong. I'm starting with centimeters. I'm going 2 millimeters. So there we go. I went 1 scoot to the right. So I'll do the same with my number and get 28 millimeters. I was reading my own problem backwards. Bad for me. Okay. Let me do one that I don't mess up because I just said it backwards and messed everyone up. Okay, we want to say first 16 centimeters is how many meters? And we also want to say 16 centimeters is how many millimeters. If I write it this way, I don't confuse myself. So for the first one, where are we starting on our list?
At the C.
The C, the centa. Where are we going? We're going to the plane unit. We have to remember, again, the only tricky part of this list is that the plane unit is the gram, the liter, the meter, whatever we had. So that's 2 scoots to the left. So I do 2 scoots to the left and I get 0.16 meters. On the other one, I'm still starting at centa. Now where am I going?
To the M.
The M, the milla. So 1 scoot to the right, 1 scoot to the right, and I have 160 millimeters. Okay, now that I didn't mess up in the middle of it, does that make sense to people?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, so with meters, you go to the left, and with millimeters, you go to the right?
Here we had centimeters. That's what the C stands for, is the centa.
Yeah.
A plane unit was meters. So going from centimeters to meters, from centimeters to meters,
Okay.
was 2 scoots left.
Okay.
On the other problem, we're still starting with centimeters. Now we're going to millimeters. This M is a milla, it's not meters. So going from centa to milla was 1 scoot to the right. So we did 1 scoot to the right and we had to put a 0 there because it wasn't.
Okay, I get it.
Okay, let's see if you get it. Your turn. There's still more for you.
Yay.
Let's just do one at a time. Okay, what are my letters? So killer, hobos, dance, under, dazzling, crystal, mobiles, dot, dot, micro, if we need the micro. So this unit, that's the plane unit, whatever it is in this case. What is it in this case, by the way?
Grams.
Grams. So plain grams goes here if we need it. Okay, take a moment and you do it, and then I will do it on the board too. What are the two letters we underline?
The K
Kilo, we're going 2 kilo,
and grams.
the plain grams. Okay. 1, 2, 3 scoots. 1, 2, 3 scoots. So 6.48 kilograms. We could put the 0 there if you want, because we really knew it that accurately. Questions on that one? Everyone's quiet. Should we do the next one?
Okay, so when we do our homework, we write this word up here, the KHD UDCM, and then we can do our homework.
Yes, this is a good way to
Okay.
do your homework.
Okay.
We will learn some types of problems that this doesn't cover, just like in the previous thing we did. We don't know yet how to get all the way from inches to miles without getting confused. But for a lot of problems, this saves you from having to write all these times 10s or times 100s and figure out, am I dividing, am I multiplying?
Okay.
Do you need me to write the letters at the top? Did anyone not put them in their notes? I'm testing if you're taking good notes. Everyone remembers they can look at the Jamboard in a separate window or tab if they want, right? You want me to review that?
So are we going to go over from the unit, right? And go over 2
Let's-
or 1?
So
1.
KH. I really should put one with micro in just so that it gets some love. Okay,
1.
so where are we starting?
And to the U?
We're starting, well, this one I'm trying to trick you. So 450 cc's, cubic centimeters. How many milliliters is that?
4.5. Do you start with a C?
Each milliliter is a cc. They were two names for the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that one, you don't do anything. You're just rewriting it with a different name. That was if you were paying attention last class. But what we can really do with this one is 450 milliliters is how many liters? So that's just to name. So for this one, where am I starting up in King Henry Land?
At the M.
At the M, we're at milliliters. And where are we going?
3 places to the unit.
Yeah, here's plain liters. And that is 1, 2, 3, as he said. So 1, 2, 3.45. Questions on any of that?
So cubic centimeters and millimeters, are those the only ones that are gonna have like the same names?
Those are the only ones that people have two names for the same units.
Okay.
And it's not millimeters, it's milliliters.
Yeah, milliliters.
Oh, sorry, that's what I meant.
Let me draw some pictures just in case you weren't here or someone listening wasn't here last time. So if we have 1 meter of length, that was the standard length for the metric system. It was a reasonable amount for doing things in real life. Lots of things are a few meters or tenths of a meters or something like that. If I was, however, to make an aquarium that was a meter on a side and fill it with water, that would just be an immense amount of water. When I was caring about volume, when I'm caring about weight, then that would be an impractically large amount of volume or weight to be the basic thing to measure with. So what the French decided was, instead of that picture, we're just going to have a very tiny picture where there's a centimeter. And we'll turn that into our cube. And then that will be our basic thing. If you fill it with water, it weighs 1 gram. And it's also a milliliter. Why did they make it a milliliter and not a liter? Because it is kind of small for an amount of volume. It's useful in the lab, but if you're trying to fill a backpack, then you would need an awful lot of them. So that's why we have liter soda bottles, because better size for real life. Okay, but back to this. Any questions about the King Henry scooting around?
So the unit is also, so the plain liters, unit, and grams, that's all the same thing, right?
Yeah, because we can only do one kind of thing at a time. Let me just write a new problem. Let's do something with micro so we can enjoy that. So if we have 2.8 centigrams of medicine, and we want to change that into micrograms, then when I make my list, I can only use that list at the top of my prefixes for one thing at a time. I can't really change liters into meters. Right? This picture shows that it was about how much water weighs, but still, they're kind of different things. I can't change length into volume or volume into mass or mass into length. So once I have decided what problem I'm doing, then I've sort of committed. I've said, my unit is going to be grams. So all of these are prefixes about grams: kilograms, decagrams, centigrams, milligrams, micrograms. I could do a different problem where everything was about meters, but it doesn't really make sense to mix them. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, in this one, where are we starting? Where is that on our list here?
Starting at the C.
Starting at the C for centa. And we're going over to micro. MC, by the way, if you haven't seen this, if you haven't done nursing, is the prefix for micro. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 scoots to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4 scoots to the right. And there we go.
So when there's no decimal point, if it was just 28, then we would still be going from the 8 for spaces.
Right, you'd start here and there'd be an extra one at the end.
And if it were in front of the 2, then we do it that way. So, and then vice versa if we're going to kilograms or something.
Right. If we were doing as a different problem, 54 micrograms is how many milligrams, then I'm starting at micro, I'm going to milli, 1, 2, 3 scoots to the left. Where's my decimal point hiding?
To the left of the 0.
Yeah, it could be 54.0 if I was writing that. So 1, 2, 3, and I get 0.054. Should we look at some homework problems?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, we haven't done number 8 yet. We haven't talked about square roots, but any of the other 7, which one should we do?
Number 1.
Number 1. Number 1 is my trick question. Okay, why is this one a trick question?
Because they're the same thing.
They're the same thing. A milliliter is a cubic centimeter. So all I have to do is write the same number and put the different thing at the end. Ready to go back to the list?
Yes.
Holler if I'm moving too fast. It's a little tricky in Zoom when people can only stare at the screen in one place.
3.
3. Okay. That nice picture again. Oops. Okay, so if I have 1 cup, that's how many pints? Or maybe the other way around. Maybe I have 1 pint and that's how many cups.
There's 2 cups per pint.
2 cups and 1 pint. Everyone see that in the picture? 2 cups is 1 pint. So 14 cups. I'm going to do something with a 2. Am I multiplying or dividing?
Multiplying.
Dividing.
Oh.
Am I shattering cups into smaller things, or am I grouping them together, bundling them together into bigger things?
Dividing.
Yeah, I'm bundling, so that was dividing.
Do you put do not round your answer on there just to be a trickster, or
It's because it's random and it doesn't always work out even.
Oh, okay. I just
That's just because we're on the random problem page.
okay. I
Yes,
just
if
didn't know.
I'm sorry if it confuses you, but
Well, no, I didn't know if you were just trying to be a trickster and trying to catch us up on something that.
this time it worked out, but often it doesn't. So I could probably just get rid of that and who cares?
Well, it's good to know that some of them won't be, even, and then we don't round. So that is a good thing to know, I guess, since we did do rounding at the beginning of this. Was it this week we did it?
Okay, next one we should do. How about 4? 4 is harder.
Yes, can we do 4? I was gonna suggest that.
Okay, do I happen to know how many inches is a yard? Maybe some of us do. I'm going to pretend we don't though, and make this a 2-part problem. First, we have to go from inches to feet, and then we're going to go from feet to yards. Whoops. So what numbers do I put in my conversion rates? We need those before we start on our actual problem.
So 12 inches in 1 foot. And I think you said 3 feet in 1 yard.
3 feet in a yard, yeah. Everyone okay with the setup?
Mm-hmm.
Again, if you've done a lot of carpentry at home and you know that there's 36 inches in a yard, just do that. But I'm not assuming everyone knows that. Okay, so part A, we have 102 inches. We're going to do something with a 12.
Divide.
I heard a divide. Everyone agree at divide?
Yep.
So whatever that is. Okay, so far so good. Now I have 8.5 feet. And I'm going to do something with the 3.
Multiply.
So this one was divide because we're grouping or bundling or whatever you want to call it. The inches into the feet. Are we going to shatter the feet into yards? Yards are bigger. So we're still grouping, bundling. So we're still dividing. Oops. Everyone okay on that?
You wrote 2.8 feet.
Oh, well, sorry. Yeah. Yards. Thank you. Good correction. More questions on this one?
So how many inches are in a yard?
Okay. You'd put the 12 and the 3 together and get 36. If you wanted to memorize that or keep that in your notes, you could. Is it okay if I left that page? Do you want me to go back to it? We're almost at the end of our one file. Should we do one with these prefixes and scoots?
Sure.
Which one?
6.
6. Okay. I'm going to get rid of the do not round because I'm keeping it here. I do like the do not round here because as we've seen before, often then we really have a lot of accuracy. We started with this tiny little measurement of milliliters, so we really know that accurately how many liters it is because we started with some tiny little thing. We counted carefully. So the don't round makes much more sense with these kinds of problems. Okay, so I have a number 376. I probably shouldn't put that. 057. I have my thing, killer hobos dance under dazzling crystal mobiles, ... micro. So where am I starting?
At the C?
The C, at centigrams. Where are we going?
All the way over to the K. To the
Way
left.
over to the K for kilograms. Everyone okay with that?
5 scoots.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the left.
And for accuracy, we leave all of those numbers. That's what you mean by do not round, correct?
Right.
You want to
Because we
see
really
all of
do know
that?
that accurately. Someone sat down with a scale, measured things
Mm-hmm.
to the nearest 1 centigram. So we're not bragging. We actually have 5 decimal points of accuracy.
Okay.
Should we do any others?
So each time we start at the end of the number, or it just depends on it which way we're going, right?
You start wherever the decimal point is. So where's another King Henry one? If the decimal point's in the middle, that's where you start. But if there is no decimal point, then it's always hiding because you could put a 0.0 after a whole number. So with this one, we started at the end because it was like something 0.0. So the decimal point was hiding there.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, let's finish up because we are so close to done. So exponents and square roots everyone loves because your calculator does all the work. If you are in the online book, whoops, then you're up here. If you're in the green book, we're in sections there still. If we have a square that's 1 foot on a side, some tile in my kitchen or some stepping stone out in my yard, then I want to make it into square inches. So I need to say, first of all, that this is a square foot, because that's what it is. It's a square. That's a foot on a side. That's what square foot means. If I wanted to change it into inches, I would have to shatter or break up or whatever, crack apart each side into 12 inches. The bottom side and the up and down side. Does that make sense? So now when I'm counting how many little square inches I have, each of these little things is a square inch, wherever it is. How many square inches do I have total?
48.
Not quite. 12 and 12.
24.
No,
144.
2 rows.
144.
144. 12 times 12 is 144. So let me put this in our notes. Whoops, and we are now on our second Jamboard. So 1 square foot equals 144 square inches. Some people are fancy and want to write this as 1 square foot with an exponent is 144 square inches with an exponent. So if you want to do that, you can. I'm always going to write square, just SQ period. This doesn't mean I'm multiplying 1 by itself, or I'm multiplying 144 by itself. It's very different than the kind of exponent that says 2 cubed equals 8, because this applies to a number and is shorthand for multiplying, whereas this is just a label of what kind of measurement unit I have. Do I have big tiles, or do I have tiny little square inches? Your bathroom floor looks very different based on the size of the tile. Everyone okay with that heads up? Okay, so again, square feet is FT with a little square thing. Square centimeters is centimeters with a little square thing, but we're not squaring the number. If I have 2 squared feet, just to drive this point home so no one misses points on a test, then that's going to be 2 times 2 is 4 feet. That's a length. That's like me taking paces. That's a totally different creature than if I have 2 feet squared. That's just me putting down 2 stepping stones in my backyard. Each one is 1 foot by 1 foot. That's an area. I can't do anything to make one into the other because they're totally different creatures. One is a length of string, the other is 2 stepping stones. So don't get confused when you see this or that. Okay. A square root relates to what we just did. The square root of a number is the amount that if we multiplied it by itself, we'd get back to that first number. So the square root of 25 is 5, because when I draw the picture, if I have a side of length 5, the square has 25 little squares in it. Similarly, oops, that's not what I want. Next slide. If we had a different square and there was 16, what would the square root of 16 be?
4.
4.
4 times 4 is 16. Or if we had another square and it has 9 pieces in the middle of it,
3.
then there's 3 on each side. See how that works? So when we write this with a symbol, the square root of 25 equals 5, or the square root of 16 equals 4, or the square root of 9 equals 3. That one looks sort of bad. Then that's all we're saying. Don't let the fact that there's a symbol make it more complicated than it is. Again, Math 20, your biggest danger almost always is making it more complicated than it is. So all of these worked out nicely. What if I had something terrible, like here's a square and the area is 20? It's not going to be 4, that's too small. It's not going to be 5, that's too big. It's going to be 4 point something. Everyone happy with that? It's in between 4 and 5. So you should be able to do this on your calculator. So take out your calculator,
4.5.
open your phone to your calculator, whatever. Make sure your square root key works. If you do square root, do I have square root on mine? For me, it's the second function of x squared. Square root 20 equals, and I get about 4.472. So we're going to ask you to do this once on a test, and we're going to give you a point for doing it right. All you have to do is punch something in your calculator.
And to answer it correctly would be to have the approximate.
It's going to tell you. Let's go back to our random problems. It's going to either give you a number that comes out nice or tell you how much to round. So let's do this one I just brought up. So what's the square root of 4,225? Hopefully your calculator does this. If not, get a different calculator app.
I believe my name was still Hale on the account.
So I plug it in and I get 65, and I just do this on the calculator. What that's saying, again, don't let the symbol confuse you, is that if I was to draw a box that was 65 on each side, then all of those little boxes, if I was to somehow count them all, then there would be 4,225 of them.
So if it's a number that is not equal, like the 20 was, do you bring out the point plus however many to make it look the best, or do you round it?
Just write a few decimals. It'll say round to the nearest thousandth or something to tell you. And if I forget and don't, then just write a few. It's okay. Just so I know you did it right. Okay, there was somebody that said something I didn't hear. No, no other questions? Did someone have a calculator that wouldn't do this? No? Okay, so this should be good news. It's a really easy way to get 1 point correct. Your calculator does all the work. One last definition. When it does work out nice, we call those perfect squares. So numbers like 9 and 16 and 25 are perfect squares. And that is the end of shapeshifting. We've now done everything here. That's all that anyone can think of to do with just one number, we now have done. So hooray, congratulations, milestone. Bring lots of questions Monday. You have all weekend to do lots of homework. You can do measurement even though it's not due on Monday. You can do percent even though it's not due on Monday. So do lots of homework, send me questions on email or text or whatever, and bring questions to class. We'll have our study session Friday afternoon as usual.
At 3:30, right?
3:30.
How long are they usually?
What?
How long are the study sessions usually?
It depends on when people get done.
Okay. And you can just kind of like come and go.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
If everyone has left at 4 o'clock, then I might give up at 4:15 and not actually wait till 4:30 because there's nothing special about an hour.
Okay.
So if you're going to show up late, send me an email or a text RSVP so I know to be there for you. But on average, people tend to have about an hour of endurance before they give up and want to stop. But there's nothing special happening at 4:30 that means we have to stop. Okay, so questions about any of that? We've done so much good math. Oops, that's what I'm trying to look at. Or should I make another? We look at the turn-in homework for different things, see if anything makes you panic. Percent we looked at last time. Measurement, feet to yards, miles to feet. Did we talk about how many miles are in a foot? Maybe I've never written that anywhere. If it's not in your notes anywhere, 1 mile is 5,280 feet. Save you from having to Google that.
Okay, so our rounding homework is due today.
Rounding homework is due today. Let me talk about that a little more, actually. That's a good point. So for the letter grades, the way grades normally work in a college class, pluses and minuses are completely meaningless. Your next teacher, an employer, no one has any idea what that means. Do you get a B plus instead of an A because you had a bad day on your final, or because the way the teacher grades, it's really hard to get the A? Or are you a weak foundation and you worked your tail off? Or do you know this already and you were lazy? No one knows what a B plus means compared to an A. So along with grading you more intelligently, we're using plus and minus differently to measure sort of your class engagement. So if you get 9 more stars for your class, Math 25 homework doesn't count, then you would need for your letter grade, you get a plus. And you'll see that that's a fair amount of work, but not actually that bad. If you get 4 late homeworks, but you don't earn the plus, then you get a minus, which means, yeah, you're doing A or B or C level work. You're just sort of a little slow and not organized. So the only penalty to turning in homework late is if you do it 4 times and you don't do a bunch of extra stuff, then you'll get a minus after your letter grade. So turning in 1 homework late does nothing to your grade. Turning in 3 homeworks late does nothing to your grade. But don't turn in 4 homeworks late unless you want to do all of the 9 extra things.
So are we turning in the homework that is from our books that we're doing, or are we turning on the homework that's on the computer?
The computer homework, the one that says shape-shifting, rounding, these 10 problems where you click here and get a code. Because everything in your book, you have the answers to. It's all odd numbered.
Yeah.
So that's just there for you to practice. If it's good, keep doing it. If it's boring, you're done. Try and turn things in.
Okay.
Okay, I'm so sorry. So what's due today? The rounding homework and the shape shifting homework?
Yeah, just the rounding in this first category.
Okay. Okay, it's the same thing. Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
So only the rounding is due today. Try and get it in by the end of the day. And then fraction format will be due when I see you next class on Monday.
Okay, and then what were the ones due on Wednesday? The percent?
One's due on Wednesday will be the third 1%. When I meet with you on Monday, then we'll see. Does anyone have questions about measurement? If they do, then it won't have a due date. If they
Okay.
don't, which would surprise me, then it will be due the next time, which would be Wednesday of next week.
Okay.
So the class after no one has questions is when things are normally due.
So after you're done with the 1 through 10, you go to here and you get the
Yep,
The
go
code?
here
okay.
and then get your code.
Okay.
I
And
don't
then-
show you the multiple choice here only because I want you to work forward. I don't want you to look at multiple choice answers and try and figure out which one is right.
Okay, and then take a picture of your worksheet that you have done.
No, you don't need to, just the code.
Okay. Okay.
There are times that when we look at the list, you have to write things neatly, but I don't need to do that at your homework precisely.
Okay.
So if you have neatly written homework, don't burn your paper to warm your house. Keep it because you can turn it in later for check marks.
Okay.
But you don't have to turn it in every time neatly written. Should I show you where that is? If I just search for neat and then no, written. So for this check mark, if this is one check mark you want, for 3 different topics, 3 different homeworks, turn in 16 well-written, turn in the homework with all 16 characteristics of well-written problems. And if you want to know what those 16 are, click there, and here we go. So haven't lectured this in class yet, maybe I will Monday, but you don't have to guess, am I writing it nicely? I am telling you, here's how to write things nicely. But I haven't done that yet. So that's what this one is for 3 homeworks, turn them in neat. And if you want to start doing that, you can. There's no need to wait. You've started some homework.
Okay, so for any 3 homework topics,
Any 3.
write them down, turn them in. Okay.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Well, don't be strangers. Contact each other if you need it. Work with friends and neighbors. Call me when you get stuck. Have a good weekend.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You okay, Caitlin and Sebastian?